Hey y'all! Well, this is going to be the start of a series about building a new media room in my house. And one of the things that I never intended for this to snowball into what this has become. And originally I had my living room where I normally watch TV and stuff, and I have just a little small TV screen up on the wall, next to my couch. Where I'm laying on the couch, I can watch TV, and the room's mainly set up for people to sit and have a conversation or just hang out. And honestly, not that many people actually come over and visit me that often where I need a room dedicated to that. And I've actually got 2 rooms in my house that work great for that. I've got this really nice sunroom that's all season on the back of my house that has 2 couches with a little table in front of it that, 4 people could sit out there and just hang out, have conversations or whatever. And so I don't need to replicate that in the main room of my house. And I've really been thinking about how I could do this, and at one point I was contemplating even adding an accessory dwelling unit or a home office kind of a thing at my backyard, add a building back there, and maybe even making a dedicated listening room out there. And I got to looking and measuring in my house and thinking about it. It's like, if I just gut the room, get rid of all the furniture and everything that's in my living room right now, that's a 12 by 18 room that could be turned into a home theater listening room. And honestly, that's something that I would use a lot more than it is in its current configuration. And so I've decided to do that. And I think the first step is going to be just selling or getting rid of all the furniture in there and having a blank slate to work from. And my idea is my house has got these goofy speakers built into the wall. It was built in the late 50s, and I guess that was a cool feature to add to a house. And they make it difficult to do anything with that wall as far as putting a big screen TV up there or anything like that. And I haven't used those speakers probably in 30 years. At one point I put new drivers in them and had them hooked up with another pair of speakers, and honestly they didn't sound that great even with the new drivers in it. And I need to just take those off the wall and fill them with sheetrock, patch those holes up, and then I'll have a nice blank wall there that I can use to put one of those 98-inch flat screen TVs up there. And I know a lot of home theaters use projection and a screen, and to me they've got flat screens TVs so big now that for my size room I think that's going to work great. And then my thought was to have some sort of a curtain or drapes that would be sealing the floor that could close over the TV screen when I'm not using it, and then have the speakers set in front of there, some pretty decent sized floor standers, have the equipment rack in between the speakers. I know some people hate that, but hey, I'm going to go with that route. Put the turntable and the tape deck over to the side, and then get some of those home theater seating recliner type chairs, probably a pair, to put facing the screen so that somebody comes over, we can sit and watch TV, but I can center the pair of those chairs to the speakers for me listening to music, and I can recline back and just enjoy the music kind of a thing, and just turn that whole area into a TV 2-channel stereo kind of listening environment. And that opens up a lot of options for speakers, Up until now, I've been limited to pretty small bookshelf speakers, and I think getting some nice floor standers is going to be transformative to my listening experience. I spent some time down at the Tampa Audio Show listening to a bunch of different speakers, and honestly, none of the stand mount speakers sounded as good to me as the floor stander models of even the same brand that would have the same house sound. And so I think I've probably been missing out on some sound by limiting myself to my setup. And I know some of you have said, you've got the worst setup I've ever seen. And it's like, I don't know, it sounds pretty good to me. But I know it can sound better. And now that I found the spot in my house that I want to use for this, and it was sitting right there in front of me, and I kept thinking, where am I going to set up my sound? I was thinking about doing it in this room and like moving my workbench and all that somewhere else in my house and all that. And I just realized that I'm not using my living room for anything, and why not just use that? And that's on the nice main room of the house where it's a very comfortable spot to be. So yeah, I think this is going to be fun, and I'm going to try to do this on a fairly tight budget. I'm hoping to do the whole thing, including some nice chairs, the big screen TV on the wall, patching, doing painting, getting the drapes, getting some nice floor standard speakers, and an equipment rack and all that stuff for under 10 grand. And I know that's not budget for some folks, but for a home theater setup, that's pretty cheap. So hopefully I'm going to be able to do that. So let's talk speaker upgrades for the room, especially considering the budget that I'm talking about. And I've listened to several speakers down at the show that I like. These Gershman audio speakers sounded amazing. But the speaker that I would probably be in the market for from their lineup, that's in that house sound, would be like $18,000 speakers. And they'd fit in the room. I think they'd work. They're 87 dB, which are the same as my little Quad S2s. So I still think I could drive them in my smaller room at the sound pressure levels that I listen to, which is in the low 80s, with a 2A3, might take a 300B, but I think it would work. So the other speaker, I went down to Hi-Fi Buys, my local store. There's some Dyna Audio that I kind of liked, and they didn't really just wow me. They were not quite as detailed and sparkly on the top end that I like, which these Gershmans were. Then I listened to some Vandersteens and really liked them. They were the trios, $11,000 speaker. Yeah, that would be a stretch for me to pull off something like that. But then they're 85 dB speakers, and I just don't think that kind of efficiency would work with the amps that I like. And then I would be limiting myself to push-pull type amps, which, might be a path I go down in the future, is getting a pair of those speakers. Again, I really like the way they sounded. I want to compare them to some other speakers and spend some more time listening. Hopefully they'll have a booth up at Expona, and some other folks will, that I can, compare more speakers and really be on the lookout. But, one of the things that I found that I really like the sound of the quad ribbon tweeter speakers. And I think I'm going to try to hunt down a pair of quad S5s. And as you've heard me talk about before, I really like the sound of those quad S2s. And I think the S5s would just be a little more of that. The S2s are 87 dB, which I've been able to get away with. The S5s are 90 dBs, so they're more efficient than the speakers that I'm using now. They are, fairly large floor standard speakers. They're the largest in this S lineup, and I think that might be the ticket. I know I like the sound from those speakers, and they're not a real popular speaker. There's not a lot of reviews on them, but I'm going to try to hunt down a pair. And there's one store that's showing they have them for sale, still new, here in the U.S., but I'm not sure if they actually have them or not. It's kind of like the S2s. I think they show them on the Quad website, but then I don't think they're making them anymore, which seems kind of weird. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. They do have their new Reveal something speakers. I'll put it up here. That they are available. They've got a floor standard that's, I think it retails for $4,500, something like that. That's actually within, I think, the price point that I could put in this room that I'm building. And I know I like, again, the house sound from these Quad speakers, and I'm kind of used to it, and I think it would just be an extension of what I presently am listening to and like. And so, leave in the comments below. I know everybody's got the speakers they love, but something that's got that kind of ribbon tweeter sound that's under $5,000, if you got any recommendations that are efficient. And yeah, I'll go take a look at them. But for now, got Audio Mart, somebody selling a used pair for $1,200. I don't know if they still have them for sale or not. That would be ideal, because I'm fine buying used speakers. They're actually broke in. I don't have to deal with that. So, or scratch and dent speakers, I'm fine with those. I don't really, the second pair of Quad S2s I bought to use for, taking to demos and stuff, they were a scratch and dent from MoFi, and I got them for $600, and they were $1,800 speakers, so I was happy to get them for that. So I think this is going to be exciting. I'm excited. First step is getting rid of all this furniture that's in my living room right now. And just, I've had it for 30 years, and some of it I'm kind of attached to. I don't know, I should be emotionally attached to furniture, but I've had it for so long, it's going to be weird getting rid of it. But I did a purge of my house late last year where I filled up a dumpster full of stuff out of my house. So I've lived here 45 years. There's just tons of stuff here. And so this is just going to be another one of those things where I just got to do it. But I think getting that out of the room and getting a blank slate is going to be step one. And for you guys that know like flat screen TV technology, or like what a good kind of lower price tier 98-inch TV would be, if you can put that in the description too, or what I should be looking for. I don't even know like the brands that are good and that sort of thing. I've in the past kind of stuck with Sony stuff, but I know there's other brands out there that also make nice TVs. So yeah, if you can put that in the description, that'll help too. And I plan on kind of documenting this as I go along and showing pictures of the room as I'm going through it and that sort of thing, so you kind of get a feel for what my new listening room is going to sound like. Because I get people asking in the comments, show us your system, and it's like, it's not very impressive looking. And I don't want something that's just impressive looking. I want something that sounds really good too. But I think that'll help the channel too, is having a nicer dedicated listening room to share with you guys. So I think this is a good place to wrap up this video. Hope you enjoyed the content. Hope you're going to enjoy this series. If this is something you think will be fun to watch, the transformation of my living room into a listening room, subscribe to the channel. Thanks to you folks that follow my videos and follow the channel. Thanks to you folks that are members, that join my Patreon, that send donations or buy my stuff, or other ways that y'all have contributed to making all this possible. And I hope this is going to be a fun journey. So until the next video, have a nice day.